He gripped his knee like it had betrayed him, right there on the gym floor. 76 years old, 3 sets into a simple squat, and suddenly his leg gave out. The pain shot through the joint, sharp, sudden, impossible to ignore or explain away. His training partner rushed over, expecting torn cartilage or something visibly, obviously wrong. Nothing was swollen, nothing looked broken, yet he could barely stand upright afterward. "My knees are just getting old." A sentence repeated so often it sounds true, but an x-ray 3 days later reveals something almost nobody in that gym expected. His knee joint was, structurally, mostly fine. No major arthritis, no torn ligament. So if the knee wasn't broken, what exactly had caused him to collapse mid-squat? That question would haunt his physical therapist for the rest of that week. Because this wasn't the first patient who blamed the knee without real proof. It happens constantly after 50. This reflex to point at the joint that hurts. Pain shows up in the knee, so logically the knee must be the problem. Except pain doesn't always start where it's felt. The body isn't that simple. Sometimes pain is a messenger, arriving from somewhere else entirely, somewhere overlooked. There's a muscle group quietly failing long before knees ever start complaining. It fails silently, without swelling, without warning, without obvious symptoms, for years. And when it fails, something has to compensate, has to absorb the extra load. That something is often the knee, unfairly blamed for someone else's weakness. This is one hidden pattern behind some unexplained knee pain after 75. Not the knee itself, but the muscles that were supposed to protect it. To understand this, you have to understand how your body distributes daily force. Every step, every squat, every staircase relies on a chain, not a single joint. The hips, glutes, and core are meant to absorb most of that force. The knee is really more of a hinge, simple, elegant, but easily overloaded. When the muscles above it weaken, the hinge starts doing work it wasn't built for. Some researchers describe this compensation pattern as an altered movement strategy over time. It doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly across years of sitting and stillness. Modern life practically trains this weakness into us, one chair at a time. Desks, car seats, couches, all silently switching off the very muscles we need. Some clinicians informally call this gluteal amnesia, when glutes underperform without pain, not injured, not damaged, just quietly, gradually, disconnected from daily movement patterns. And here's where the story gets uncomfortable for anyone over 50 listening closely. You can feel physically capable while this weakness develops completely undetected inside you. Meanwhile, your knees are absorbing forces they were never designed to handle alone. Some research links hip abductor, weakness to earlier, more frequent knee pain onset, not ankle weakness alone either. Hip weakness often plays a role too. That detail challenges the simple story that knees just wear out with age. Knees don't simply wear out from age alone, like tires on a car. They wear out faster when nothing upstream is doing its share of work. Think of the hip and glute as a shock absorber built into your body. When shock absorbers weaken, every bump on the road hits the frame directly. Your knee is the frame. It wasn't built to absorb shocks alone. This can help explain why some active 70-year-olds still develop sudden knee pain. They're not lazy. They're not sedentary. Their glutes just quietly stop participating. Somewhere between 50 and 70, muscle activation patterns shift without any obvious signal. The brain starts recruiting different muscles for the same movements, less efficiently. Some researchers describe this as altered motor recruitment, a shift nobody consciously chooses. It's not weakness in the traditional sense. It's disconnection, a communication breakdown. The muscle fibers are often still there, just no longer firing on command. This is deeply different from arthritis, and yet it produces remarkably similar pain. That overlap is exactly why doctors and patients alike keep blaming the joint. Arthritis is visible on scans. Muscle disconnection often isn't visible at all. So the eye goes to what can be measured, not what actually matters most. This isn't a criticism of medicine, it's a limitation of what imaging can show. An X-ray photographs bone density and joint space, not muscle activation timing. You could have a perfect knee X-ray and still be in daily pain. The scan looks fine, but I'm still hurting is a common sentence in orthopedic offices. The missing piece almost never appears on that scan at all. It appears in how someone rises from a chair or descends a staircase. Watch closely and you'll often see the hip barely engage during these movements. The knee lurches forward instead, absorbing weight the hip should have carried. Multiply that lurch by thousands of repetitions across years and damage accumulates quietly. Not dramatic damage, just slow, cumulative stress, invisible until pain finally arrives. This is why the gym floor collapse wasn't really a knee failure at all. It was the final moment in years of quiet hip and glute silence. The knee simply reached its limit and announced what had been building for years. Culturally, we're taught to fear aging joints more than aging muscles, oddly enough. But muscle loss after 50, called sarcopenia, happens whether you notice it or not. Without deliberate effort, adults can lose meaningful muscle mass every single decade. Some of that loss shows up in the glutes, muscles that help protect knees. To be fair, hip weakness is one contributing factor, not the only cause. And because glutes are visually hidden, behind us, out of sight, we forget them. We see our arms in mirrors. We rarely see our glutes working or failing. Out of sight often means out of mind, especially for muscles behind the body. So the philosophy underneath this entire story becomes clear with every example. The body doesn't fail randomly. It fails wherever attention has quietly stopped visiting. Whatever muscle group gets ignored long enough eventually forces itself into the conversation. Sometimes that conversation sounds like a sharp, sudden pain during a simple squat. There's something almost psychological about which body parts we choose to trust. We trust our knees to keep working without ever training their support system. It's like trusting a bridge while ignoring the pillars holding it upright. This mismatch between where pain appears and where weakness originates causes enormous confusion. People spend years icing knees that were never truly the root problem. Meanwhile, the actual source, hip and glute strength, goes completely unaddressed for years. Physical therapists increasingly emphasize this disconnect in their evaluation of older patients. Instead of asking, where does it hurt? They ask, what isn't firing properly? That shift in questioning changes everything about how recovery actually gets approached. It moves a story from damage control toward genuine, upstream understanding of movement. Consider two 75-year-olds with nearly identical knee X-ray results side by side. The imaging looks almost identical, yet their lived experience couldn't be more different. What separates them usually isn't luck or genetics alone, but hip and glute function. One person's hips still fire on command. The others quietly stopped years ago. This is empowering information once you sit with it long enough to absorb it. It means knee pain after 75 isn't automatically a life sentence of decline. It means the story can still be rewritten, even later than most people assume. Muscles, unlike some tissues, retain a remarkable ability to reactivate later in life. Many studies on older adults show meaningful strength gains well into their 80s. The nervous system can relearn firing patterns that seemed lost for years. It's about restoring communication between brain and glute, one deliberate movement at a time. Simple daily awareness, like consciously engaging hips while standing, can begin that process. This isn't medical advice. If pain persists or worsens, please see a professional. Over weeks, that awareness compounds and the knee slowly stops absorbing extra blame. This is where the man from the gym floor eventually found his answer. His physical therapist didn't focus on his knee joint at all initially. She watched him walk, watched him rise from a chair, watched his hips. Within minutes, she noticed his hip barely moved during each single step. His glutes had gone quiet years earlier, and his knee had been compensating silently. It was the final chapter of a story that began years before that day. Once his hip and glute training resumed, something shifted within just a few weeks. The knee pain didn't vanish overnight, but it steadily, measurably began to ease. Not because the knee had healed in some dramatic, unexplainable way, because the muscles meant to protect it had finally rejoined the conversation. His scans still looked the same. His movement, however, had quietly transformed. That's the twist hidden inside this entire story from the very beginning. The knee was never lying about the pain, but it was misidentified as guilty. The real story was happening one joint higher, silently, for years beforehand. So the next time a knee complains loudly after 75, consider asking differently. Not, "What's wrong with my knee?" but, "What stopped protecting it years ago?" Somewhere behind you, quietly, a muscle may be waiting to be remembered again.